Before we continue, pause for a moment and consider something. What if, at this very moment, the person who keeps appearing in your thoughts has finally made a decision that changes everything between you? What if the silence you have been living through is not a sign that nothing is happening, but proof that something important has been taking shape where you cannot see it? Most people expect life-changing moments to arrive with dramatic conversations, clear answers, or obvious signs. They believe that if something truly important is happening, it will announce itself loudly. Yet life rarely works that way. Some of the biggest turning points happen in complete silence. They unfold deep inside the human mind, where emotions quietly grow stronger than fear. They happen where old memories meet new understanding, where long-held doubts slowly lose their power, and where hidden truths can no longer remain buried. Right now, there may be a quiet transformation taking place that has not yet reached the surface. Someone connected to you may be seeing everything differently than they did before. They may be experiencing a realization they never expected. Piece by piece, thoughts that once felt confusing are beginning to fit together. Emotions that were pushed aside are becoming impossible to ignore. There comes a point when pretending no longer works. There comes a moment when the heart becomes louder than every excuse the mind has created. That moment changes everything. The person linked to you may have reached that place already. They may have arrived at a decision that was not made in a single day, but was built through countless moments of reflection, emotional struggle, and quiet self-discovery. When a decision is made at such a deep level, it changes far more than thoughts. It changes direction. It changes energy. It changes the future. Even if nothing has become visible yet, the foundation beneath everything may already be completely different. So listen carefully. What you are about to discover may explain why the connection has felt so unusual, why the silence has carried so much emotional weight, and why the next chapter may unfold very differently from everything that came before. A truly deep decision is not like the ordinary choices people make every day. It is not created by temporary excitement. It is not driven by impulse. It is not based on passing emotions. Instead, it develops slowly inside the deepest parts of the human psyche. Every experience, every conversation, every memory, every disappointment, every moment of happiness, every unanswered question. All of these continue gathering beneath conscious awareness until they begin forming a picture that can no longer be ignored. Long before someone realizes they have made an important decision, their inner world has already started changing. The unconscious mind quietly collects experiences that once seemed unrelated. It notices emotional patterns. It compares past and present. It connects memories that were once scattered. Slowly, it reveals truths that the conscious mind either missed or refused to accept. What appears to others as a sudden realization is almost never sudden at all. Most life-changing decisions have been growing quietly beneath the surface for weeks, months, or sometimes even years. The visible moment is only the final step of a much longer journey. This becomes even more powerful when the connection involves someone who has touched another person's emotional world in an unusually deep way. Many people spend a long time trying to explain away feelings that make them uncomfortable. They convince themselves the timing is wrong. They focus on distance. They blame circumstances. They tell themselves life has become too complicated. They remind themselves of past disappointments. They search endlessly for practical reasons to move on. Yet beneath every logical explanation, the emotional truth continues existing. It waits patiently. It does not disappear simply because it is ignored. In many cases, the harder someone tries to suppress genuine feelings, the stronger those feelings eventually become. The conflict grows quietly inside them. One part of their mind continues defending old beliefs. Another part keeps moving towards something deeper. Eventually, these two forces become impossible to separate. The emotional tension reaches a point where something has to change. That is when real transformation begins. The person starts noticing details they once overlooked. Conversations they barely remembered suddenly become meaningful. Small moments begin carrying unexpected emotional weight. Memories return with greater clarity. Simple encounters seem far more important than they once appeared. Instead of pushing the connection away, they begin looking at it honestly. That process is not easy. In fact, it often becomes one of the most challenging emotional experiences of their life. Because facing the truth means facing every fear standing in front of it. Fear of rejection, fear of vulnerability, fear of making the wrong choice, fear of losing emotional control, fear of opening the heart only to experience disappointment again. All of these fears rise together, yet each one also offers an opportunity to grow. As they examine these fears more carefully, they begin recognizing something important. Not every belief deserves to be protected. Some beliefs were created only to survive painful experiences. Some emotional defenses once served an important purpose. But over time, those same defenses can become barriers that prevent happiness instead of protecting it. The walls they spent years building slowly begin losing their purpose. They realize that avoiding emotional truth has not created peace. It has only extended the conflict within themselves. That understanding changes everything. Eventually, resistance becomes weaker than acceptance. The soul grows stronger than fear, and that is when the deepest decision is finally made. It is no longer necessary to keep arguing with themselves. They stop demanding endless proof. They stop searching for excuses. They stop creating reasons to deny what they already know. Instead, they quietly accept it. Acceptance does not remove every challenge. It does not magically erase every obstacle. It simply means they have recognized a truth that can no longer be denied. From that moment forward, the battle between the heart and the mind begins fading away. A new clarity slowly takes its place. Everything inside starts moving in the same direction instead of pulling apart. Even if their outward actions still require time, their inner foundation has already changed. The crossroads no longer exists. The decision has already been made deep within. And once that happens, the journey ahead can never unfold in the same way again. Thoughts begin to grow stronger. Emotions start carrying more weight than before. Questions appear that had never entered the mind. Things that once felt certain no longer seem as solid. What used to feel simple now becomes more complex. A person starts looking at life from a different point of view, even if they do not fully understand why. At first, this change often creates resistance. Most people naturally hold on to what feels familiar because familiar things feel safe. The mind prefers certainty over the unknown. It tries to protect the current path by creating doubts, distractions, and logical explanations that make change seem unnecessary. It searches for reasons to stay the same, rather than move into unfamiliar territory. Even with all these efforts, something continues working beneath the surface. The connection refuses to disappear. It keeps returning to the person's awareness in quiet but powerful ways. They find it harder to think as they once did, because something important has already changed deep within them. Once that inner movement begins, returning to old patterns becomes much more difficult. This is where a true shift in destiny begins. The person is no longer guided only by old habits, outside expectations, or the opinions of other people. Instead, they begin listening to a quieter voice inside themselves. It is not loud or dramatic. It simply becomes impossible to ignore. Little by little, this inner guidance starts influencing their decisions. Priorities begin changing. Things that once seemed very important slowly lose their hold. Success, approval, and familiar routines no longer bring the same satisfaction they once did. At the same time, emotional honesty, personal growth, and meaningful relationships become far more valuable. The person begins searching for something deeper than comfort. They begin searching for truth. As this happens, the direction of their life slowly starts changing. The shift is not always visible from the outside. Daily routines may continue as usual, but internally everything feels different. Every experience begins carrying a new meaning. Every decision is viewed through a different perspective. Life is no longer measured only by achievements or expectations. It becomes measured by authenticity and inner peace. A soulmate connection often becomes the spark that starts this transformation. It acts like a mirror, reflecting hidden parts of the personality that have remained unseen for years. It reveals strengths that were never fully developed. It also reveals weaknesses that were carefully hidden beneath old defenses. This mirror does not judge. It simply shows the truth that has always existed beneath the surface. Because of this reflection, the person begins examining themselves more honestly than ever before. They question old beliefs. They notice repeating emotional patterns. They become aware of habits that no longer support the life they truly want. This growing awareness encourages them to become more conscious of every choice they make. Slowly they realize that the future does not have to be a continuation of the past. Old experiences no longer have complete control over what comes next. New possibilities begin appearing where none seemed to exist before. These opportunities were always present, but they could not be recognized while looking through an outdated way of thinking. As awareness continues expanding, change begins arriving in unexpected ways. New conversations take place. Different opportunities appear. Decisions become easier because they are guided by greater honesty. Emotional walls that once seemed impossible to break begin weakening. Situations that looked permanent suddenly start changing. Life itself appears to respond to the transformation happening within. Many people notice meaningful coincidences during this stage. Certain numbers appear repeatedly. Familiar themes continue showing up in different situations. Unexpected encounters happen at exactly the right moment. Conversations seem to answer questions that were never spoken aloud. Whether these moments are viewed as psychological patterns, meaningful synchronicities, or simple reminders from the unconscious mind, they create the feeling that life is gently guiding the person toward a new direction. This growing awareness becomes powerful because it changes not only external circumstances, but also the relationship a person has with themselves. They begin understanding what they truly want, instead of what they believe they should want. They become more honest about their emotions. They stop living only according to fear, pressure, or the expectations of others. Instead, they begin paying attention to what genuinely feels right deep inside. When inner truth becomes the guide, momentum begins building naturally. Decisions become less influenced by confusion and more influenced by authenticity. Every honest choice creates another step forward. Every moment of self-awareness makes the next decision a little clearer. Progress no longer feels forced because it grows from genuine understanding instead of fear. As this process continues, the old path slowly loses its power. The person remembers who they once were, but they cannot completely return to that version of themselves. Their perspective has changed. Their emotional awareness has become deeper. Their understanding of both themselves and the connection has grown beyond what it once was. The shift in destiny is not simply about reaching one particular ending. It is about becoming someone capable of walking a completely different path. That path is shaped by greater awareness, emotional honesty, and the willingness to follow the deeper wisdom that quietly calls from within. The destination matters, but the transformation of the person matters even more. One of the greatest forms of transformation begins through acceptance. Many people believe lasting change only comes through struggle, pressure, or endless effort. Hard work certainly has its place, but true transformation often begins the moment a person stops fighting what they already know deep inside themselves. Acceptance is not weakness. It is not giving up. It is not abandoning responsibility or losing control. Acceptance is simply the courage to look directly at reality without trying to deny it, hide it, or change it into something more comfortable. It means allowing truth to exist exactly as it is. Within a soulmate connection, acceptance becomes especially important because these relationships often awaken emotions that are difficult to explain. The feelings seem larger than ordinary attraction. They reach into places that have remained untouched for years. Because of this intensity, many people spend a long time trying to convince themselves that what they feel is not real. They may tell themselves the connection is temporary. They may decide it is only imagination. They may focus entirely on practical problems, difficult timing, distance, or disappointments from the past. All of these explanations appear reasonable because they provide protection from uncertainty. They create the illusion of emotional safety. Yet beneath every explanation, the emotional reality continues existing. No matter how carefully the mind constructs its arguments, genuine feelings remain alive beneath the surface. The more a person tries to suppress those feelings, the more energy is required to keep them hidden. Eventually, that effort becomes exhausting. Inner tension begins growing stronger. Thoughts repeat themselves over and over again. Emotions become difficult to understand. One part of the person wants to move toward the connection, while another part wants to escape from it. This inner conflict creates confusion because two different realities seem to exist at the same time. One reality reflects the emotional truth that lives deep inside the heart. The other reflects the story the mind keeps repeating in order to avoid vulnerability. Holding both realities together demands constant emotional effort. Over time, that effort becomes impossible to maintain. Real acceptance begins when a person becomes honest enough to recognize this contradiction. Instead of asking how to erase the feeling, they begin asking why the feeling exists. Instead of treating emotions like problems that must be solved, they begin seeing them as messages waiting to be understood. That small change in perspective opens the door to remarkable psychological growth. Hidden fears slowly become visible. Old beliefs rise into awareness. Assumptions that once seemed unquestionable begin losing their certainty. The person starts realizing that much of their resistance was never about the connection itself. It was about the vulnerability, uncertainty, and emotional openness that the connection required. As awareness continues growing, old defenses slowly lose their strength. Protective habits that once felt necessary begin looking outdated. The person realizes how much of their life has been directed by fear instead of truth. Fear of rejection may have encouraged silence. Fear of disappointment may have created emotional distance. Fear of change may have caused hesitation whenever important decisions appeared. Acceptance does not instantly remove those fears. Instead, it brings them into the light, where they can no longer quietly control every decision. Once they become visible, they begin losing the power they once held. The person no longer acts automatically. They become more conscious of every emotional choice they make. This transformation also changes the person's relationship with uncertainty. Before acceptance, uncertainty feels dangerous because it represents the unknown. After acceptance, uncertainty becomes much easier to live with because the individual is no longer trying to force every outcome. They understand that being honest about their feelings does not require knowing exactly how the future will unfold. What matters most is remaining truthful in the present moment. From that place of honesty, emotional energy that was once consumed by resistance becomes available for healing, growth, clarity, and deeper self-understanding. The person feels lighter because they are no longer carrying the exhausting burden of denying their own experience. Their thoughts become clearer. Their actions become more authentic. Their choices begin reflecting who they truly are, rather than who they believed they needed to become. Without forcing the process, transformation unfolds naturally. Emotional maturity grows. Self-awareness deepens. The connection with their own inner truth becomes stronger than ever before. The answers they have been searching for were never completely outside them. They were patiently waiting beneath the surface, ready to emerge the moment acceptance replaced resistance.